Allah, Yahweh, Bashim Yahushua. I'd like to give all praise and honor to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushua, Bashim Rakah Kodash. Double honor to the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. A sincere salutation to the hopeful elect out there, striving, struggling in these last days. Shalom, Labakarium, Shah Yasharallah. This is part 3. Like I said, I don't know what I'm gonna call this video yet, but this is part 3. Let's go back to the book of Isaiah 9 verse 18 again. Okay, it says, "For wickedness burneth as the fire, it shall devour the briars and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up." And they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. Though the wrath of Yahweh of hosts is in the land of darkness, and the people shall be as the fuel, which is the meat. This word fuel is meat of fire. No man shall spare his brother. So the Lord's going to use this. This is the lake of fire here. It's the lake of fire. That's Isaiah 9 verse 19. The people is going to be as fuel for the fire. So let's get back into this video.
Pace to build hypersonic weapons, the next generation of arms that rob adversaries of reaction time and traditional defeat mechanisms. In July, Russia said it had successfully tested its Zircon hypersonic cruise missile, a weapon that President Putin has touted as part of his new generation of missile systems without equal in the world. But the free flight test of the hypersonic air-breathing weapon concept occurred last week, according to Defense Advanced Research Projects. The HAWC program manager stated that this brings us one step closer to transitioning the HAWC to a program of record that occurs next-generation capability to the U.S. military. We are readying our next vehicles and working toward additional flight tests later in the year. In the meantime, Russian fighter jets have scrambled and intercepted an American B-52 bomber as it approached the Russian border over the Pacific Ocean. Citing the official source, the RAA news agency claims that Russian radars identified the hostile aircraft approaching Russian airspace over the eastern part of the country. 3 advanced Sukhoi 35S fighter aircraft were immediately scrambled from Russia's eastern military district to intercept the incoming threat. The fighter jets escorted the plane away from Russian airspace, seeing the bomber perform a U-turn and leave the area. Russia and the U.S. are historically wary of each other following tense standoffs seen during the Cold War, and Moscow has become increasingly aware of NATO expansion to the east and taken measures to respond to the buildup of NATO forces on its border in Eastern Europe. Senior Russian officials have warned that regional states of potential military consequences for hosting U.S. missile defense systems and have not ruled out a preemptive strike on such batteries. Now, ties between the West and Russia have been further strained following the announcement of the Australian-UK-US deal, which will see a greater presence in the Indo-Pacific region. Both China and Russia have expressed their strong condemnation of the pact, with both nations replying in kind with shows of military strength in recent days. Russia's President Putin said of the deal that we do not want to burn bridges, but if someone sees our good intentions as indifference,
let me stop this right here for a second. For those talking about like Asian NATO, no, it will not be an Asian NATO. China is going with Russia.
They should remember this. Russia's response will be quick and it will be tough. He went on to add that everyone who is coming up with provocations that are a threat to our interests will regret that, the way that they haven't regretted something for a while. Now, in addition to all of that, the Kremlin has warned on Monday that any expansion of NATO military infrastructure in Ukraine would cross one of President Putin's red lines. And Belarus also said that it agreed to take action with Moscow to counter the growing NATO activity. The close ally of Moscow accused the United States of setting up training centers in Ukraine, which he said amounted to military bases. And he said that he had discussed the issue with Putin. He also stated that they had both agreed to take some kind of measures in response. Ukraine began joint military exercises with the U.S. and other NATO member troops last week, while Russia and Belarus held large-scale drills that alarmed the West. Ukraine, which is not a NATO member, has long sought closer ties with the West and its militaries. Russia staunchly opposes the idea of NATO membership for Ukraine, and it alarmed Ukraine and the West earlier this year by the building up of military forces near Ukraine's border. It goes on finally to report that the Ukrainian foreign minister has rejected the notion of a Russian red line outside of Russia's own borders and said that Ukraine had its own security to think about. Putin's red lines are limited to Russia's borders. On our side of the Ukrainian-Russian border, we can figure out ourselves what to do in the interests of the Ukrainian people, as well as Ukraine and Europe's security. So certainly some very high tensions between Russia, Ukraine, and NATO. And speaking of tensions, it is also being reported tensions between the UK and China have worsened after a British ship sailed through the Taiwan Strait.
Look at all this, man. Jeremiah 50 and 25, the Lord has opened up his armory weapons of war. And you got people saying this is not going down. This is happening.
The first time in a decade. And China blasted the Royal Navy for harboring evil intentions regarding the transit. Now, of course, the ship was shadowed by 2 Chinese vessels on its journey to Vietnam. A Ministry of Defense spokesman also said that the HMS Richmond is navigating the Taiwan Strait in accordance with international law to the next destination. Wherever the Royal Navy operates, they do so in full compliance with international laws and norms and exercise their rights to freedom of navigation and overflight provided by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The HMS Richmond is no exception. But according to a spokesman for the People's Liberation Army, the British side has taken the trouble to gain a sense of existence. This kind of behavior harbors evil intentions and damages peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. The troops of the command are always on high alert to resolutely counter all threats and provocations. In the meantime, NTD is reporting that apparently Taiwan's defense minister is requesting long-range accurate weapons in order to properly defend itself against China. Taiwan this month proposed an extra defense spending of almost $9 billion over the next 5 years, including on new missiles. Speaking in Parliament, the defense minister stated that the development of equipment must be long-range, precise, and mobile, so that the enemy can sense that we are prepared as soon as they dispatch their troops. In a written report to Parliament to accompany the defense minister's appearance, the ministry said that both medium and long-range missiles were being used in intercept drills at a key test facility in Taiwan's southeastern coast. He declined to give details to reporters of how far Taiwan's missiles could reach, something that the government has always kept well under wraps. Taiwan offered an unusually stark assessment of China's abilities in its annual report on China's military, saying that they could paralyze Taiwan's defenses and are able to fully monitor its deployments. It goes on finally to report that asked what China would attack first in the event of a war, he answered that it would be Taiwan's command and communications abilities. On this, he said, the Chinese communist abilities have rapidly increased. They can disrupt our command, control, communications, and intelligence systems. For example, with fixed radar stations certainly being attacked first. So we must be mobile, stealthy, and able to change positions. So this situation right here is not a matter of if China is going to try and invade, but when they invade. China has been warning over and over, and I've been bringing you those reports, but they have been warning that eventually they will reunify Taiwan and China.
Now you hear that? It's not a matter of if, it's when. So everybody, prepare. This is Revelation 16:16. Joel, if I'm not mistaken, Joel, the 2nd chapter, as well as the 3rd chapter. This thing is going down. The children of Israel is coming back into authority. 2nd Ezra 69. This is the end of Esau's world. This is the beginning of Jacob's world. This empire is done based on Daniel's the 2nd.